Here begins the physician's tale. There was, as tells us Titus Livius, a knight whose name was called Virginius, fulfilled of honor and of worthiness, who many friends and much wealth did possess. This knight had had a daughter by his wife, nor children more had he in all his life. Fair was this maid and excellent beauty, above all others that a man may see. For nature had, with sovereign diligence, molded her to so great an excellence. She seemed to say, Behold now, I, nature, thus can I form and paint a creature pure when I desire. Who can it counterfeit? Pygmalion? Nay, not though he forge and beat, or curve or paint. And I dare say again, Apelles, Zeuxis too, should work in vain, either to carve or paint or forge or beat, if they presume my work to counterfeit. For he who is creator principal has made of me his vicar general, to form and color earthly creatures all, just as I like, for their mind great and small, under the moon, the which may wax and wane, and for my work I ask no payment vain. My Lord and I are of one soul accord. I made her in the worship of my Lord. So do I other fair or foul creatures, what colors though they have, or what figures. It seems to me that nature thus would say, This maid was 14 years of age, this May, in whom Dame Nature had so great delight. For just as she can paint a lily white, or red and rose, even with such a stroke, she did this creature by her art evoke, ere she was born, painting her sweet limbs free, in such true colors as they'd come to be. And Phoebus dyed her long hair with such gold, as have his burning streamers manifold. But if right excellent was her beauty, 1,000-fold more virtuous was she. In her there lacked not one condition known that's praiseworthy when by discretion shown. As well in soul as body chaste was she, for which she flowered in virginity, with all humility and abstinence, and with all temperance and with patience, and with a modest bearing and array. Discreet in her replies she was alway. Though she was wise as Pallas and not vain, her speech was always womanly and plain. No highfalutin pretty words had she, to ape deep knowledge after her degree. She spoke in all her words, greater and less, tended to virtue and to gentleness. Modest she was with maiden bashfulness, constant of heart and full of business. To keep her from all idle sluggardry, Bacchus had of her mouth no mastery. For wine and youth help Venus to increase, as when on fire is scattered oil or grease. And of her virtue, free and unconstrained, she had oft times some little illness feigned, in order to avoid a company, which likely was to do some great folly. As people do at revels and at dances, which are occasions when young folk take chances. Such things but make young men and maidens be too ripe and bold, as everyone may see, which is right dangerous, as 'twas of yore, for all too soon a virgin learns the lore of wantonness when she becomes a wife. Your governess is, who in older life have great lords' daughters in your governance. Take from my words no foolish petulance. Remember you've been set to governings of lords' daughters for but one or two of two things, either that you have kept your honesty, or else that you've succumbed to your frailty, and having learned the measures of love's dance, have now forsaken such ways of mischance. For evermore, therefore, for Jesus' sake, see that you teach them virtue nor mistake. A poacher of the deer who has reformed, left wicked ways, and been by goodness warmed, can guard a forest best of any man. So guard them well, for if you will, you can. Look that to no vice do you give assent, lest you be damned for your so vile intent. For who does this is traitor, that's certain, and take good care that I speak not in vain. Of treacheries all, the sovereign pestilence is when adults betray young innocence. You fathers and you mothers fond also, if you have children, be it one or two, yours is the burden of their wise guidance, the while they are within your governance. Beware that not from your own lax living, or by your negligence in chastening, they fall and perish, for I dare well say, if that should chance, you'll dearly have to pay. Under a shepherd soft and negligent, full many a sheep and lamb by wolf is rent. Suffice one instance, as I give it here, for I must in my story persevere. This maid, of whom I do this praise express, guarded herself, nor needed a governess. For in her daily life all maids might read, as in a book, every good word or deed that might become a maiden virtuous. She was so prudent and so bounteous. From all this grew the fame on every side of both her beauty and her goodness wide. Throughout that land they praised her, every one, that virtue loved and envy stood alone. That sorry is when others live and weal, and for their woe will ever gladness feel. Dr. Augustine's are these words, I own. This maid upon a day went to town unto a temple with her mother dear, as the wont is of young maids everywhere. Now there was then a justice in that town, was governor of all the region known. And so befell this judge his two eyes cast upon this maid, noting her beauty fast. As she went by the place wherein she stood, swiftly his heart was altered in his mood. He was so caught by beauty of the maid, and to his own dark secret heart he said, She shall be mine in spite of any man. Anon the fiend into his bosom ran, and taught him swiftly how by treachery the maiden to his purpose might win he. For truly not to bribery or force would it avail, he thought, to have recourse, since she had many friends and was so good, so strong in virtue that he never could, by any subtle means, her favor win, and make her give her body unto sin. Therefore, with great scheming up and down, he sent to find a fellow of the town, which man he knew was cunning and was bold, and unto this man, when the judge had told his secret, then he made himself right sure that it should come to ears of no creature, for if it did, the fellow'd lose his head. And when assent to this crime had been said, glad was the judge, and then he made great cheer, and gave the fellow precious gifts and dear. When plotted out was their conspiracy, from point to point, how all his lechery should have its will performing craftily, as you shall hear it now told openly. Home went the churl, whose name was Claudius, this false judge, who was known as Appius. Such was his name, for this is no fable, but an historical event I tell. At least the gist is true beyond a doubt. This false judge goes now busily about to hasten his delight in all he may, and so befell soon after on a day, this false judge, as recounts the ancient story, as he was wont sat in his auditory, and gave his judgment upon every case. Forthwith a wicked churl advanced apace, and said, Your honour, if it be your will, then give me justice prayed for you, for in this bill of my complaint against Virginius, and if he claim the matter stands not thus, I will so prove by many a good witness that truth is what my bill does here express. The judge replied, On this, in his absence, I may not give definitive sentence. Let him be called, and I will gladly hear. You shall have all your right and no wrong here. Virginius came to learn the judge's will, and then was read to him this wicked bill, a substance of it being as you shall hear. To you, Judge Appius, may it so appear, that comes and says your servant Claudius, how that a knight by name Virginius, against the law, against all equity, holds expressly against the will of me. My servant, who is slave to me by right, who from my house was stolen on a night, while yet she was but young, this will I prove, my lord by witness competent thereof. She's not his child, whatever he may say. Wherefore to you, my lord the judge, I pray, yield me my slave, if that it be your will. Lo, this was all the substance of his bill. Virginius's eyes the churls began to hold, but hastily before his tale he told, ready to prove it, as befits a knight, and by the evidence of many a wight, that false was this charge of his adversary, the wicked judge. He would no moment tarry, nor hear a word more from Virginius, but gave his judgment then and there, as thus. I do decree in favor of the churl, no longer shall you hold this servant girl. Go bring her here, and leave her as my ward. This man shall have his slave as my award. And when this noble knight Virginius, by judgment of this justice Appius, must now perforce his darling daughter give unto the judge in lechery to live, he did go home and sat down in his hall, and gave command his daughter there to call, and with a face dead white and ashen cold, her modest mien his eyes did then behold. With father's pity striking through his heart, though from his purpose he would not depart, Daughter, said he, Virginia by your name, there are two ways, for either death or shame you now must suffer. Ah, that I was born! For you have not deserved to be thus lorn, to die by means of sword or any knife. O my dear daughter, ender of my life, whom I have bred up with so deep pleasance, that you were never from my remembrance. O daughter, who are now my final woe, aye, and in life my final joy also. A gem of chastity and brave patience, receive your death, for that is my sentence. For love and not for hate you must be dead. My pitying hand must strike your innocent head. Alas, that ever Appius saw you, nay, thus has he falsely judged of you today, and told her all the case, as you before have heard. There is no need to tell it more. O mercy, my dear father, said this maid, and with that word both of her arms she laid about his neck, as she was wont to do. Then broke the bitter tears from her eyes too. She said, O my good father, must I die? Is there no grace? Is there no remedy? No, truly, darling daughter mine, said he. Then give me leisure, father mine, quoth she, but to lament my death a little space. For even Jephthah gave his daughter grace, to weep a little ere he slew, alas. And God knows that in naught did she trespass, save that she ran to be the first to see, and welcome him with greetings merrily. And with that word she fell into a swoon, and after, when the faint was past and gone, she rose up and unto her father said, Praise be to God that I shall die a maid. Give me my death before I come to shame. Do with your child your will, and in God's name. And then she prayed him, as he was expert, he'd strike her swiftly, lest the blow should hurt. Whereon again a swooning down she fell. Her father, with a heavy heart and will, struck off her head, and bore it by the hair straight to the judge, and did present it there. While yet he sat on bench in auditory, and when the judge saw this, so says the story, he bade them take him out and swiftly hang. But then 1,000 people rose and sprang to save the knight, for ruth and for pity, for known was now the false iniquity. The people had suspected some such thing, by the churl's manner in his challenging, that it was done to please this Appius. They knew right well that he was lecherous. Wherefore they ran this Appius upon, and cast him into prison cell anon, wherein he slew himself, and Claudius, who had been creature of this Appius, was sentenced to be hanged upon a tree. But then Virginius, of his great pity, so pleaded for him that he was exiled, for after all the judge had him beguiled. The rest were hanged, the greater and the less, who had been parties to this wickedness. How many men see how sin has its desert? Beware, for no man knows whom God will hurt, nor how profoundly know, nor in what wise the hidden worm of conscience terrifies the wicked soul, though secret its deeds be, and no one knows thereof but God and he. For be he ignorant or learned yet, he cannot know when fear will make him sweat. Therefore I counsel you this counsel take, forsake your sin ere sin shall you forsake. Here ends the physician's tale.
The words of the host to the physician and the pardoner. Our host began to swear, as madman would. Hallo, he cried. Now by the nails and blood, this was a false churl and a false justice. As shameful death as thinking may devise. Come to such judge who such a helper has. And so this luckless maiden is slain, alas. Alas, too dearly paid she for beauty. Wherefore I always say, as men may see, that fortune's gifts, or those of Dame Nature, are cause of death to many a good creature. Her beauty was her death, I say again. Alas, so pitiably she there was slain. From both the kinds of gift I speak of now, men often take more harm than help, I vow. But truly, my own master, lief and dear, this is a very pitiful tale to hear. Yet let us pass it by, as of no force. I pray to God to save your gentle course, your urinals and all your chamber pots, your hippocras and medicines and tots, and every boxful of lectuary. God bless them, and Our Lady Mary, Holy Mary. So may I prosper, you're a proper man, and like a prelate too, by Saint Roman. Said I not well? I can't speak in set terms, but well I know my heart with grief so warms, that almost I have caught a cardiac pain, body and bones, save I some remedy gain, or else a draught of fresh drawn malty ale, or save I hear anon a merry tale. My heart is lost for pity of this maid. You, Bonamy, you pardoner, he said, tell us some pleasant tale or jest anon. It shall be done, said he, by Saint Ronan. But first, he said, just here at this ale stake, I will both drink and eat a bite of cake. But then these gentlemen folk began to cry, Nay, let him tell us not of ribaldry. Tell us some moral thing that we may hear wisdom, and then we gladly will give ear. I grant it, I, said he, but I must think upon some seemly tale, and the while I drink.